If you've just joined us now, we're just going to wait a moment or two for everyone to get into the webinar and then we'll kick off. We'll just wait another moment or two in case anyone else joins us before we start. Okay, I think we can start. So, hello everyone, and welcome to this session on creative careers focusing on creative employability. My name is Adrian, and I'm from Falmouth University, and I'm joined today by Jessica from Arts University, Bournemouth. Both of our universities are located in England, in the UK, and we're going to be taking you through this presentation. You can ask questions at any time, simply by typing them in the Q&A. We will hold your questions until the end of the presentation, but please ask them at any time. Next slide, please. So these are the topics we're going to be covering today. And if there's anything you want to ask which we don't answer, or you have further questions about, or you want clarification about, please don't be shy to ask, because chances are somebody else has exactly the same question as you. Next slide, please. So I wonder if any of you saw the headlines that came out around this particular image last year in the UK and the worldwide press. This was actually put out by the UK government to encourage people into tech jobs. Now, in response to this advertisement, our writer and journalist Caitlin Moran, who you may have heard of, who has a weekly commentary in the Saturday Times, wondered by tweet if the UK government had recently created a hopes and dreams crushing department. So there was huge backlash against this advertisement, and it was taken down, actually, fairly sharply. So even if you didn't see this particular advertisement, I'm sure you've all seen headlines similar to it and picked up on opinions from people who imply that there is little value in the arts and therefore poor job prospects. But is this actually true? So what we want to do today is to be able to equip you with the facts so that you can, together with your family and your advisors, make an informed decision about your next steps into higher education. Next slide, please. So firstly, let's start by thinking about the number and variety of creative careers that are out there. Now, maybe what are creative careers might seem like a very obvious question to you, but for a lot of people, when asked this question, they just think about people like John here in this image. Now, John is one of our fine art graduates from Falmouth, and he's now a very successful painter and fine artist. Now, of course, being a fine artist is a completely legitimate career to aim for. However, if you only think about people like John, then you're maybe not considering the huge number of careers available in the creative industries. Now, I'm sure that you are aware of many, many more creative careers, such as photographers, film directors, game designers, fashion designers, entrepreneurs, programmers, architects, trend forecasters, content creators, etc. All absolutely fantastic careers, but even still, quite a short list. But of course, creativity is literally all around us. And there are so many jobs that young people like you can consider when thinking about what they want to aim for. Next slide, please. So here's an example taken from a relatively small fashion company. These are just some of the roles you could find within a single organization, within just one of the many sectors that make up the creative industries. This is just one small company. Next slide, please. So these are the subsectors of the creative industries that will help you to get a feel for what we're talking about when we talk about the creative economy or creative industries. But this is a simplified representation that divides it by sector rather than by function or skills. And there is a lot of crossover between the subsectors in terms of the skills required to work within them. There are loads of jobs that straddle these subsectors or that sit partially inside and partially outside of them. And of course, the subsectors are extremely interdependent upon each other. So for example, the games industry is very dependent on the music industry. Think about what a video game would be like if you didn't have music in the background to make it emotional and compelling and make you want to play more. The publishing industry is very dependent on design. So next time you pick up a magazine, look really carefully at how it's designed and laid out to make you want to turn the pages and look at all the advertising and how that's designed. So what this means is that the creative industries is a really exciting jobs landscape, because with a single set of really excellent creative skills, you could potentially work in a variety of subsectors of the creative industries across your working lifetime. And if you think that you as young people are going to have to expect to change your job many times throughout your working life, this will give you the flexibility to pivot towards your interests and job opportunities as they arise. Of course, the creative industries is changing and evolving all the time, and that's why I've left the box in the bottom right-hand corner empty, because there may be a completely new and unique subsector of the creative industries by the time you've left university or education and are ready to start your career. Again, a great set of honed and creative skills will allow you not only to take advantage of new areas of work, but maybe even to create one for yourself. Next slide, please. Now, we also reckon that these jobs are quite safe, because one of the biggest worries in a lot of industries is that as technology improves, jobs might become obsolete. But of course, creativity can't be automated. So the world will always need creative thinkers, innovators, and problem solvers, because people with these types of skills help organizations to reach their goals socially and financially, and help them to move forwards and develop. And of course, people who can help organizations to reach their goals will find that they're much in demand and they'll be rewarded, not just with money, which is of course important, but also with the opportunity to try new things, to see one's goals come to fruition through promotion and recognition. Next slide, please. So if, as I propose, there's lots of roles and opportunities out there, what does this look like in terms of numbers and value? Well, it's a little difficult to cover this today as you all come from different countries, so I can't cover every jobs market, and there is no like but for like comparison country by country. But what I can tell you is the creative industries, of course, are very collaborative and global in scope. They're so important that the United Nations has actually declared that 2021, this year, is the International Year of the Creative Economy for Sustainable Development. And that is simply because the creative industries are so important to the global economy. In fact, the creative economy counts for 3% of global GDP, according to a 2015 study. But it's worth arguably much, much more when cultural value is added to commercial gains. I have just a few examples of how much the creative industries are worth to a few countries globally. So in Indonesia, the creative economy contributes 7.4% to the nation's GDP and employs 14.3% of its workforce. In the UK, the creative industries made a record input to the economy in 2017 and contributed £101.5 billion to the country's coffers and grew at nearly twice the rate of all the other areas of the economy. The British Council's report on the Brazilian creative economy found that there's 1 million creative jobs in Brazil and 200,000 creative businesses, and they account for 2.64% of GDP in Brazil. And also, a report published by UNESCO shows that the cultural and creative industries account for 29.9 million jobs worldwide. So the creative economy is proving to be a powerful emerging economic sector, and it's been strengthened recently by digitization and a surge in demand for services. Its contribution is expected to grow, experts say, and if key trends can be harnessed successfully, we could be living in a much more creative world in the future. Next slide, please. So here's a set of graphics that's available online from the Creative Industries Council, which is a joint organization run between the UK creative industries and the UK government. It's a representation of the official government stats. You can see this slide for yourself if you want by going to the Creative Industries Council's website where it's up. So the graphics refer to gross value added, or GVA, which is an economic term for placing a value on everything that the UK produces from a specific industry or sector in pounds sterling. So you can see on the left-hand side, that's where the 111.7 billion pounds comes from, which, as I say, it roughly equates to 12.7 million pounds an hour. Now, what's really interesting is where within the creative industries that growth is coming from. So the diagram in the center shows this. The figure in bubbles aren't numbers of jobs, but rather millions of pounds that subsector of the creative economy contributes to the overall industry. So you can see that 45.444 million pounds was made by IT software and games. Then you have film at 20.8 million, advertising 18.6, and publishing at just over 10. And of course, these are the individual sectors that make up the creative industries. Don't forget what I said, however, earlier about the fact that all of the subsectors of the creative industries are extremely interdependent on each other, and one cannot operate without the other. So why is this slide useful? Well, it proves that there's a lot of value in the creative industries. Creative industries are essential to our economy, and where there is value, there's investment, and where there's investment, there's jobs, and where there's jobs, there's opportunities for people like you. Next slide, please. So Marisa Henderson, who is the Creative Economy Program Head for the UN's Conference for Trade and Development, illustrates the point about the value of the creative industries very nicely, I think. She says, more than ever, we need creative thinking, innovation, and problem solving to imagine ourselves out of the challenges of inequality and vulnerability that we face daily. The creative industries, the lifeblood of the creative economy, are well placed to help. Next slide, please. Now, of course, I can't really not mention the pandemic in this conversation because it's had an impact on all economies and all job markets. And COVID-19 has dealt a terrible blow to the creative industries. But the creative industries are also crucial to recovery. In fact, the UN says that without the creative industries, economic development, women's empowerment, cultural and poverty alleviation, sustainable development targets globally are unlikely to be met. And it's not all doom and gloom. There are some examples of areas of the creative economy that have actually grown and developed during the pandemic. Next slide, please. So, for example, video game sales in North America in March 2020 were up 34% from those in March 2019. Video game hardware was up by 63%, resulting in more than twice the number of units of the Nintendo Switch console being sold. Maybe you even bought one. Steam, the main digital storefront for personal computer video games, experienced over 23 million concurrent players during March 2020, and this surpassed all previous records. The streaming service Twitch, which maybe some of you access, saw over 3 billion hours of content watched over the first quarter of 2020, which was a 20% increase from 2019. And Microsoft reported a substantial increase in the users of its Xbox Game Pass service in the months of March and April 2020, bringing it to over 10 million subscribers. In many countries, educational publishers, in cooperation with schools, designed online learning materials and provided free digital access to digital learning materials for teachers, children, and parents during school closures. Similarly, the video games industry, radio and television viewing benefited as well from the lockdown, with a sudden increase in audience pools, even during daytime hours. And the massive digitization we've seen during the pandemic in the cultural and creative sectors clearly is not temporary and could create new forms of experience and business models with market potential. So new forms of digitally mediated and centralized creative production allows for engagement with much larger and wider communities, not only at the receiving end, but also in terms of content production. And this trend could really lead to a more inclusive and innovative form of a collective production of creative content. So it opens up opportunities for people to both produce creative content and to consume it. Another emerging opportunity is a stronger collaboration between the private industries and public or quasi-public cultural institutions. So building more links between commercial activities and entities such as museums, theaters, and libraries has enhanced the sustainability of these non-commercial parts of the creative industries, which will traditionally rely on public funding. Next slide, please. Now, everybody has a passion. You probably wouldn't be in this webinar if you didn't. The challenge can come in having the courage and dedication to pursue it. Life can throw lots of obstacles and challenges at us, and it can be really easy to be put off doing things that you love for all sorts of reasons. Remember this, though. If you have a passion for something, then you're much more likely to be motivated to pursue it and work hard to achieve what you want within it. Not only that, but doing something specifically creative can lead you in so many different directions because the skills that you gain are so transferable. Now, there's no right or wrong way to start your creative career and no limit to the number of times that you can change direction because your creativity skills are so transferable. The example I always like to give is of somebody studying law or medicine. So within reason, we know what kind of careers these people are likely to end up in. And it's quite a straightforward journey to understand. But studying something like fine art or design or dance or creative virtual reality could lead you into jobs that may not even exist yet. And Jessica's going to talk to you now about what you can do to get to the job of your dreams.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Adrienne. I think that the way we've divided the session is really valuable for the students and the families here doing the research, because we've really given you the global context for one of the largest industries that we don't spend a lot of time talking about. So we're really happy to kind of do a little bit of bragging and acknowledgement of how many opportunities there are globally in this industry. Now I'm going to spend some time talking about what you can do and how the universities are going to help you to achieve your goals and your dreams within the creative industries. So the skills that we develop as you attend the sessions and do the research about all of the creative universities, we spend a lot of time talking about the skill development that we offer, that you're going to be hands-on, you're going to be practical, you're going to learn all about all aspects of the field that you choose. But in addition to those practical discipline relevant skills that you'll develop, there's also a lot of skills that are transferable. And this goes to the idea that you might have multiple jobs across different areas of your discipline, or you may train in one field and go into a completely unrelated area as well. And these are the types of skills that will carry you throughout your entire career. So we know that creatives are very good critical thinkers. That just becomes an inherent part of your creative process. You ask yourself questions, you assess everything you do. In fact, sometimes you over-evaluate the decisions that you make. And it's just an inherent part of what you do as a creator every single day. So critical thinking skills at university, you will have the opportunity to further hone those and take them to a professional stance where you can work with others and evaluate your projects and ask those questions to make sure you're successful. Problem solving is also something we do. How often are you working on a project and it isn't quite turning out as you pictured in your mind? And so we ask ourselves, how can we do this differently? What materials can I use? What approach can I take? How can I ensure that what I imagined I can bring to reality? And this is a very big part of what we do at university on a daily basis, is let's look for a new way to look at the problem and find a new solution. Of course, creativity is inherent. It's right there in the name, but creativity looks and takes so many different forms. So it can be the artwork that you create. It can be the approach you take. It can be the way you work with others. Digital literacy is such a big part of the creative community, increasingly. And many of our courses will start from a very traditional place. We will start with your drawing or your garment making, your sketching, sculpture, all of these things. But eventually, we're going to round it all out with the digital technologies that exist in the in industries right now. So the digital literacy is something that will go in lockstep with your creative process, and the universities work very hard to ensure that you have access to all of the equipment and the technology that's available today. Entrepreneurism is also an important part of what we do. So many creatives go on to start their own companies, be self-employed, work in freelance. And when you're younger and doing this research, self-employment can sound a little bit overwhelming. But as you go through the university, we are going to guide you on the principles of being self-employed or starting your own company. And it won't feel quite as intimidating as you work through those processes and come to understand them. But really, creatives are best placed to start those new companies and have those new innovations. You also develop leadership and social skills very much. We do a lot of collaborating as creatives. This is just part of everything that we do. Very rarely does an artist work completely in a vacuum. There are always people to be negotiated with and collaborated with. And so this is something that will help you to develop. And of course, emotional intelligence. And this often goes hand in hand with being an artist or a creative, that you're very in tune with the culture and the community, and that you learn to read people. And it's such a valuable skill across many, many different industries. So we can't reinforce this enough. In the UK in 2019, 2.1 million jobs related to the creative industries. And I think that that slide, that graphic that was touched on earlier by Adrian, is really valuable to get a sense of what kind of jobs can be related to the field. It's so much broader than we have in our mind's eye. I also was a little bit surprised by this as well, and I hope that maybe you aren't at all surprised by this, but 2/3 of those working in creative industries hold a university degree. And so I think it goes to the testament that not only is guiding your creativity through the education system of value, but it also gives you that qualification, that piece of paper that can open other doors for you should you choose to leave the creative industries during your career. Lots of jobs for the future. We just don't see an end to the growth in the creative industries. There is very limited scope for automating a lot of what we do, as was touched on earlier. And we're seeing a lot of the merging of different industries. So Createch is the idea of bringing our technology and our creative sides together. And I think this just makes a lot of sense. And increasingly, students who go through creative studies, because of their technology education, have the tech knowledge, but also that spark of inspiration to really innovate and make a difference. So this is growing by leaps and bounds. I know at Arts University Bournemouth, we've just opened the Innovation Studio, and they're doing some incredible work with local companies that work in prosthetics with our designers. And those are the kinds of opportunities that will only increase over the next decades. And of course, the diversification of the experiential economy. And that is, a lot of people are looking for kind of their lived experience and what that means. And artists have a role in that as well. It can be anything from online gaming, which is an experience, to visiting theme parks, to historical sites. There's so many things that are just about the human interaction, whether it's in person or virtual, and the opportunity for the creatives to participate in that. And then, of course, those soft skills. And you learn those as a part of being a student, as a part of being creative, and they are so valuable as you go in to the future economy. We are increasingly interconnected. And so in addition to having those industry relevant skills, we want you to also be ready to work with people and be successful. So how are we going to do all of this at university? It's a lot. If you think about it, you're going to do your course training, and we're going to get you ready to go out into the workforce. So what we really want to do, and all of our universities are focused on this, is we build all of our courses and all of our service to take your talent and help you mold it into a practical creative career. So you come to us with these ideas and this inspiration and this vision and these innate talents or these skills that you've already worked so hard on. And we're going to help you understand what your future can look like through your university studies. We want you to become independent, proactive, disciplined, which is often a really tricky one, and of course, resilient. And we know over the last year and a half, resilience has really been the watchword. But artists are at their heart resilient. This is what we do. It's such a personal process being a creative and knowing that we have the ability to pick ourselves up and continue on no matter what life throws at us. We also work very hard to mimic the work world. And so part of that is a lot of your work at university is project-based and deadline-driven. So we don't do a lot of exams. That isn't a form of assessment that you're going to find at creative universities, because that doesn't happen in the real world. We don't write a lot of exams on a regular basis for our employer. So we're going to set up that you're working on projects. They might be individual and they might be group projects. And that is what it will look like as a working professional. And of course, working to a deadline. So project management will become a part of what you do, because again, that is how we work when we go out into the workforce. Project management skills, organizational skills, they're not always inherent as a part of being creative, but they can certainly be developed. A lot of the things that we focus on, you do them instinctively as a part of your process, but you perhaps haven't thought about it. And so we're going to help you reflect on that and ensure that you acknowledge where your strengths are and where you need to maybe do a little bit more work. And of course, it all comes back to having that passion for what you do. We want you to do what you love. A lot of us are having difficult conversations with family who perhaps don't see a future for a creative field. And there really is something to be said for pursuing what you love and knowing at the end that there will be opportunities. Collaboration is one of our favorite words. It really is the ethos of the creative universities. Everything you do will be collaborative in some form. So you will collaborate with students on your course, across other disciplines from other courses, with professional industry. And I also like to throw in there, you'll collaborate with your teachers and the technicians who work on your course. And it's this opportunity to build these relationships and learn from each other that really strengthen your personal work. We're trying to create a microcosm of the creative industries on our campuses. So our studios and our workshops and our labs are a little bit like what it will be when you go out into the workforce. Some of them might be a little bit fancier than what you might have access to in your first jobs, because we really do work hard to provide you with the most up-to-date technology and facilities. We're going to help you to build your professional network. And networking often is a little bit of an intimidating word, but really a lot of this is going to happen organically as a part of your studies. You think about your classmates as part of your network. You think about your teachers as part of your network. The opportunity to meet with industry professionals who come to campus, or you may go there as a part of a placement. And each one of these will become a connection for you that will help you to build your professional network and help you when you go out into the workforce. We do a lot of professional placements, and they vary by course and by university, but the opportunity exists within many subjects for you to go out and observe or work for a potential employer to get a sense of what it's like to put this into practice. The opportunity for live briefs and networking events is also a really important part. A live brief will be a project that is brought by a local company or organization to the campus, and it is proposed. It is put to the group of students. They say, we have this problem that is in need of a solution. And often what happens, at least at our university, is the students break up into groups and they brainstorm and they develop a proposal, a solution to this problem brought forth by this company. And then they will have a pitch session in front of this company and the people involved. And that company will choose the solution that they believe best meets their needs. And then the students will have the opportunity to work with the company to implement their solution. And by the end of this project, you have something already you can include in your portfolio that is a real world solution to a problem. And it's a wonderful process. So do look out for those types of opportunities. And then one of my favorite things is the graduate and summer shows. Every student is working towards their final project. Every course will culminate in this final project, and it can take many different forms. But the wonderful thing about it is you get the opportunity to exhibit. So every spring and summer, our campuses turn into the most wonderful galleries where every student gets the opportunity to show their work. And of course, very recently, they've all gone online as well. And so your work will get an international audience through these exhibits. And then additionally, almost every course, without exception, will have an industry conference or exhibit or event. And we do everything we can to ensure our graduating students have the opportunity to attend these conferences. They can be local. A lot of them will happen in London, perhaps Manchester and Edinburgh. They'll be international as well. Some of our graduating students go to Venice quite frequently. They can go to New York. There's a number of conferences located everywhere. And this is, again, part of that opportunity to network and show what you've achieved. And I can say that many of our graduating students walk away from those conferences and those events with job offers in hand, because those industry professionals know that this is the place to go and find those recent graduates. And of course, it sometimes goes without saying, but I think it's worth mentioning, all of our universities will offer dedicated career services offices. And so this is a team of people on the campus whose sole purpose is to help you navigate your professional work. So they will host sessions, they will do one-to-one consultations, they will help you prepare a resume or a CV, especially for international students. Preparing a CV to submit to a UK employer might look a little different than something you have from home. I know when I relocated to the UK, mine needed a little bit of polishing. They will do practice interviews. Job interviews can look very different in different places. So maybe you get a chance to practice in a safe environment. They will also host events. They might do job fairs. They'll bring in guest speakers to talk about what it's like to work in certain fields. They bring in alumni who will speak about their experience transitioning from being a student to being a working professional. And they will also have the opportunity, often digitally, to keep an eye on job postings and get a sense of what's out there in the real world. They also do a lot of work along with our teaching staff to build those relationships with potential employers. And again, it goes back to that magic word of networking. We're going to help you with the networks. We're going to help be that connection for you. We're really excited that the UK government has reintroduced, excuse me, the graduate route visa. And this is the visa that you can apply for after you've completed your education in the UK, and that you can stay and work in the UK for up to 2 years. And we're so excited about this because a lot of your professional network when you study in the UK will naturally be in the UK, not exclusively, but a lot of it will be. And so now we're so pleased that our international students will have those same opportunities to seek employment locally as our British students do. And following completion of the graduate route visa, there are subsequent visas that can be available. But if you decide you wanted to set up your life in the UK, that would be possible. But even having those 2 years of work experience and then going on from there can also be a wonderful experience. This is just a very short list. I can't even imagine. It's the smallest percentage of some of the employers that will hire the creative grads in the UK. Lots of familiar names here. What I recommend you do is if you're curious to know who is hiring the graduates from the courses that you're considering, please do go to the university websites, visit the individual course pages, And I promise you, you will find some of this information there. It's something that we're very happy to share. It doesn't mean necessarily that your company will be here. You may find something bright and new and wonderful, but it does give you a sense that our students are achieving with some high profile companies. And now we've reached the end of kind of the content. So briefly, we're going to introduce our universities, and then we're going to take your questions. And so I do hope that you'll pop any questions you have into that chat. That's always my favorite thing. So as I said at the beginning, my name is Jessica, and I'm with Arts University Bournemouth. And I actually love the session today. This is the South Coast is representing. Falmouth is just down the coast from us. And I think it's two pretty great destinations. AUB is a university of about 3,700 students, all creatives, all located on one campus. So we're kind of maybe a small to medium-sized university, but what I love is everybody studies on the same campus. So you have the opportunity to draw inspiration and interact with students from all of the different disciplines we offer. Bournemouth is located about 2 hours from London by train. So it's very nice to have the access to London, but not have the costs associated with living in central London. So we like that quick access. Sometimes I'll just pop up to London if I want to catch a show. I can do so in one day. And so it's really nice and convenient. We have received a number of different recognitions and accolades. There's lots of league tables that you can take into consideration. But the one I like to highlight is that we were recognized as the top specialist art and design university in the Sunday Times Good University Guide for 2021. AUB is the home of the Bournemouth Film School, and this goes back to what I was saying about collaboration. So the Bournemouth Film School is the largest film school outside of London. It's about 50 years old. We have quite a history in there. And by its name, you can see that our film course is involved. But in addition to film, it brings together all of our different disciplines who work in moving image. So this will include our actors, our creative writing course, our costume makers, our performance designers. It will include our makeup for media and performance. And you can see a wonderful sample of our makeup students' work in the image on the screen here. And what this is we're mimicking the work world. We have an active filmmaking studio. We have all of the equipment, and everybody brings their skills together in the Bournemouth Film School to make films, make moving image work. And it's a wonderful example of how you will go out into the workforce. And just a few names of some notable alumni from AUB. You might have heard of Edgar Wright. He is a well-known filmmaker. He did attend Arts University Bournemouth. Simon Beaufoy won an Oscar for writing Slumdog Millionaire. Wolfgang Tillmans is a well-known fashion editorial photographer, and Twinks Burnett is a fashion designer based in London. So now I will hand things over and we'll learn a bit about Falmouth.
Thanks, Jessica. So Falmouth University specializes in the creative industries, and we offer over 50 undergraduate and 25 postgraduate degrees. The university was established as a school of art in 1902, so we have a very long history going back over 120 years of teaching in the creative arts. We officially became a university in 2012, and we're now the second largest creative university in the UK with over 5,500 students. We build employability and entrepreneurial skills into all of our courses, and that's why we're number one in the UK for graduates starting or managing their own businesses when they leave us. We're also really highly rated in some areas for graduate prospects. And what we mean by that is an indication of the success of graduates after leaving university. So everything we do is about ensuring that our graduates get great jobs when they leave us. Our students can access our careers and employment services from day one of their studies right through to graduation and actually for life. You can always come back to us for help. The Falmouth is a small coastal town in the southwest of England in the county of Cornwall, which you might have seen on the news recently because it hosted the G7 summit. Now, the population of Falmouth is about 25,000 people. It is quite a touristy place thanks to its subtropical fauna and flora, beautiful beaches, a slightly gentler climate, and opportunities for outdoor activities and a beautiful countryside. But it's also a student town, and Students from across the UK and the world call it home. Our students feel very much a part not only of our university community, but also the town of Falmouth itself. So much so that many decide to stay when they graduate. They love it so much. It is a very creative town. There are lots of festivals, art galleries, opportunity for creative pursuits. So the university is very well situated in terms of the town that it's located in. The Falmouth University has two really closely located campuses. So we have Falmouth campus and Penryn campus. Falmouth campus is the original School of Art, and it's located in beautiful historical subtropical gardens, 10 minutes walk from a lovely beach. And the Penryn campus is up in the hills, and it's located in peaceful parkland overlooking the sea. And there is a cheap and frequent bus service that connects the two campuses. Most of our students, especially in the first year, live on campus, and we guarantee accommodation for all first-year students, international or otherwise, and probably about 99% of students take that offer up. So to get to Falmouth, you can take a direct 1-hour flight from London to Newquay Airport, which is about 40 minutes away, or you can choose one of the other options, such as a train or a bus journey. And we even have a mega bus stop, which is a low-cost bus carrier on campus to provide students with really cost-effective transport. And of course, there are frequent buses, trains, and even boats available locally to provide transportation around the town and the beautiful area. We organize ourselves into 9 departments, or creative hubs, as we prefer to call them. So we have our Academy of Music and Theatre Arts, where we have 11 performance and rehearsal spaces, flexible theatre space, 650 square meters of sprung dance floors, live rooms, control rooms, digital and analog equipment. It's also a working performance venue, so the public can buy tickets to student performances. Our School of Art is set amid subtropical gardens, and our art studios and workshops provide an exceptional environment for thinking and making. So the facilities include life drawing workshops and studios that support painting, printmaking, and sculpture. Students have access to their own individual studio space, so they don't need to tidy their stuff up at night. They also have access to collaborative studios as well. And they can utilize our facilities for 3D construction. We have dedicated workshops for metal casting, ceramics, woodworking, model making, etc. In the Games Academy, the students create real games and digital products every single day using our professional standard studios and equipment. We have one of the largest game development studios of any UK university, and our students have access to a spacious, team-focused professional standard facilities, as well as a dedicated craft room. And of course, they have access to a range of industry standard software management tools and games engines, and that's all included in your tuition. And the Games Development Studios, as all studios, are open late during term time to support creative collaboration between students. In the Institute of Photography, our students work in some of the best facilities in Europe, and they develop their photographic practice and portfolio, again, by taking live industry projects on, and also via occasional paid briefs via our in-house student agency. So from year 2, students can apply to join our in-house student agency and take on paid work, with the university supporting that relationship between student and customer. Our students in the Institute of Photography go on internships and study visits to places like London and the Galapagos Islands, New York and the Red Sea. In the School of Architecture, Design, and Interiors, we really champion collaboration, creativity, and sustainability. Sustainability is something that runs through all of our curriculum. It is important to our staff, and it is important to our students, and it's reflected in the way we live. The School of Architecture and Design Interiors has world-class facilities and professional staff, and our students have the space, equipment, and expertise to learn digital design, prototyping techniques, manufacturing processes, research and development methods, and conceptual skills. So our students create sustainable spaces, places, and products, and they explore issues like energy, health, and well-being. And just last one I'll touch on is the School of Film and Television. We've taught filmmaking at Falmouth for over 50 years. And our state-of-the-art kit and facilities, placement opportunities, industry connections, and sheer enthusiasm for telling stories help us to produce award-winning and employable graduates. So from animation studios and post-production suites to camera, lighting, and audio equipment available to hire free of charge to all students, our world-class media facilities help students get ready for industry. So I am going to pass it back to Jessica now.
Great. Thanks so much, Adrienne. I love hearing about our different universities. And what one of the things I do love is that there's a lot of similarities, but I think that really speaks to the strength of what we do in the UK, because we found a formula that really works. And there are differences between our universities, and that's up to the students to do their research. But I really do love to hear that, you know what, there's a lot of success and a track record with these universities, and that's really worth investigating. So now that we've talked a little bit about what your future is going to look like, how we're going to get there, what can you do right now? And I think, in fact, this question came up in the chat, so well done to the student that spotted that. So we'll touch on this, and if you'd like to talk about it some more, please do let us know. Really continue to be creative and be curious. What you can do right now is just nurture the passion that you're finding. And for many of you, that might take many different forms. You might love all different things, and that's fine. You don't know if you want to be a filmmaker or a fashion designer or an architect. That's part of growing up. So please continue to explore all of those things that kind of strike your fancy. That's a really important part of your development into a creative professional. Do a little self-reflection and think about your ability to motivate yourself, work to deadlines, establish a project and keep to it. Those are important things that do come with maturity. And unfortunately, when we're in secondary school, which many of you will be, there's a lot of structure involved and a lot of people looking over your shoulder. So we can kind of slip a little bit on that self-motivation because there's always someone keeping us to task. But as you move into university and very much into the work world, this is something that will become key. So just have a little bit of a think. Is this something that you're good at? How can I work on it? And think about roles that you like. Am I best on my own? Do I work well as a team? When I'm in a team, what does my role look like? Where do I fall? What kind of responsibilities work best for me? A little bit of self-awareness and self-analysis goes a long way. Get some work experience. Doesn't mean it has to be paid, doesn't mean it needs to be in the field you want to study, but even just a part-time job can teach you a lot about how you work and what it means to be a part of a team. So we love to see when people perhaps shadow a professional who works in the field that you're considering studying, and that's something that you can include in your personal statement and may influence your portfolio, but it can be unrelated as well. But this is the opportunity to start to develop those practical skills in addition to those academic and creative skills you've been working on. And if you have the opportunity to explore different software and technologies, please do. Now, some of them will be more available to you than others, depending again on your discipline. But there's a lot of free programs available online. It's worth having a play. If you're an animator, there's free software. If you're into filmmaking and you're looking at editing, you can find things. Fashion, software, design is available online. Yes, they're not perhaps as comprehensive as the fancy paid ones the university is going to offer you, but it will start to give you a sense of what that looks like. And again, it's something that you can include in your portfolio, that you've had a bit of a try, you've had a bit of a play, and that can be really, really helpful. So some things you can do right now that are very practical and will absolutely guide you well as you make your university application and then go out into the workforce. Some useful resources, some other website independent of our institutional sites, which will also be super valuable. Prospects and Target Jobs are two websites that do a wonderful job of presenting industry information. They'll talk about what kind of skills you need to be in a certain profession, what is related. So if you're interested in being this job, well, did you think about these 6 or 8 other roles that might be very similar? It'll talk about the earning potential when you're a recent graduate and as you move into mid-career. So it's a great source of that really practical information about what your jobs can look like. and then some different discipline related sites that will talk about the professional organizations and what they're doing to give you a sense of what that means. And I think now we're going to take a look at some questions. So I'm really hoping that there are some in there. Adrian, what have we got?
We have a question from someone who's in grade 10. Who wants to know what to do in order to start preparing. And, I think you covered this quite well. One of the things that I think is really important is, because the creative industries are so collaborative in nature, is to start to develop collaboration skills. So what that can mean if you're in grade 10 is, if you're doing a project at school and your teacher asks you if you want to do it alone or you want to do it in a group, do it in the group. Okay, because that will help you to develop those collaborative skills, those kind, leadership skills, the ability to take lots of different ideas and pull them together to one output. Ideating with your colleagues, and being able to work through a problem from start to finish. Those are all really, really valuable skills. So the earlier you can start to develop them, I think the better. Working successfully with others is just so essential to solving complex problems and innovation. People don't solve big problems by themselves. They're solved by groups. So, being a great team player and a great collaborator is essential. The other thing that you could possibly do is focus on trying to make your work as commercial as possible. So again, linking maybe the creative work that you do in school, or any work that you do in school for that matter, with commercial outcomes. So understanding how that work applies to the workplace. If you do that from an early age, it can really help you to develop a commercial focus, which can help you in later years. And we know that commercial awareness is one of the key attributes cited by many employers as being essential to employability for young people. So considering the commercial outcome of your work, if maybe asking for feedback from someone in the industry you're interested in as to how you could make it more commercially relevant, I think is a great idea. And the other thing is to be a yes person, so that you can go beyond the curriculum, work outside of the curriculum. So if somebody asks if you want to do something that extra that you're not getting graded on, the answer is yes. We don't want to hear, am I going to get marked for it? Oh, well, then I'm not doing it then if I'm not being graded for it. We don't want to hear that. So, doing things like participating in student conferences, joining clubs, leading those clubs, starting those clubs, joining community groups, putting your work into competitions. Even if you have no hope of winning whatsoever, that does not matter one bit. Participating in workshops, summer programs, if you can get to them, using your summer holidays wisely to develop your skills. That's a great way to develop skills, and the kind of sort of acumen and sort of deeper skills that either are not always covered thoroughly through the school curriculum, or they just don't have time within the school curriculum to allow you to develop those deeply. So you need to take responsibility, for that. And then the other thing is to learn by doing. Creative universities are very applied and practical. We are do and make university. So it's not just learning about creative practice, but it's having a go, experimenting, working across a range of medias to express yourself. Working with a range of media opens up wider ways for you to share your ideas and communicate and pivot towards developing markets. Even if you just try something and decide, actually, that's not for me, at least you've had a go. So that would be my sort of top tips if you're in grade 10 and you want to start preparing now.
That's a really great answer, Adrian. And the only thing I would add, because I think depending on where you're educated or where you come from, it isn't something that we're instinctively doing. But if you're going to apply to creative university and you're going to submit a portfolio, almost everybody wants to see sketchbooks, and not everybody is documenting their process. And sometimes people go, well, I don't do that, but you absolutely do. You are doing the sketchbook process. You can't create without it, but document it. And especially if you're in 10th grade, now that's going to give you time to develop a process and what you'll end up with by 11th, 12th, your last year of school. a really great kind of sketchbook that will communicate what you need it to communicate to the people assessing your work. And remember that your portfolio, if you attended the session earlier, will include not only the perfect finished pieces, but your process work. So in 10th grade, you can make a mess of your sketchbooks and that's going to be fine because you're going to find your footing and really hit your stride when it's time to share them with the world. So that's something I would say. And I love when people are doing the research, 9th, 10th grade, 11th. This is the time. You'll be ready to make your decision by the time you hit your application time. So well done.
And please, please do not throw anything out. Just don't. Shove it under your bed or take a picture of it on your phone and put it up in the cloud. You never know, even if you hate it. I've seen so many people destroy things that they didn't like, months and months work, only to wish a year or two later that they hadn't done, because it actually had that work actually influenced further work and they want to show their development. So just stick it under your bed, put it in a box and forget about it, but don't throw anything out.
I think that's a really good point, Adrienne, because a lot of what a lot of our best students have is these ideas in their head that they just can't get out. They can't make it real yet. And that's part of the training we're all going to offer you. And so because it isn't what you thought it would be, or it's not the best work you think you're capable of, especially when we're younger, we have a tendency to be very drastic with our decisions. But if you can just have that little bit of self-control, hold on to those pieces, tuck them away, as Adrienne said, you never know when that might come back into play, and you may have the skills and the knowledge and the tech to now make it a reality. So that's a great piece of advice. Yeah.
And I think also in terms of portfolios, it's never too early to start to develop a portfolio. I get so many young people who say to me, I cannot possibly show you my portfolio because it isn't ready. Well, your portfolio just sits where you are now, and how it looks today and how it looks in 3 months and how it looks in a year and how it looks in 5 years and 10 years are going to be totally different. And anyone who is looking at your portfolio will recognize the level of where you are now and judge it accordingly. So, don't be too hard on yourself and recognize that your portfolio really it's a living document. It will be constantly changing. So, it's never too early to start to develop a portfolio, and it's never too early to start to share it.
I agree completely. Yeah. There was one other question in the chat that we did cover in the presentation, but I just thought I'd reinforce. Mathilda asked about how long you're allowed to work after you complete your studies. So the standard graduate route visa is 2 years, but as I mentioned, there is the potential for follow-on visas. There's also other types of visas. There's an entrepreneurship that a lot of our universities will get involved in sponsoring. But to be really honest, the graduate route is the easiest. You don't have to have a job to get it. You just have to have completed your education and kind of not been arrested or anything while you're a student. It's a pretty easy visa to get, which we're so excited about. So it's 2 years with opportunity for more. Great.
So, Jessica, did we show the slide with our contact details?
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
so there we
great.
are.
Okay, so this is us. You are more than welcome to contact either of us at any time if you want a one-to-one with us, or you think of further questions you want to ask, or you want to have a meeting with us and your parents. That is absolutely fine. Do reach out to us. We are there for you. And I think really that's all that's left for me to say is thank you very much for joining us today. We've had a really fantastic time speaking to you all. We do hope to see you in the future on one of our campuses, or both if you're coming to our open days. Our face-to-face open days are starting up again, and we have virtual ones as well. So, do keep in touch with us. And if you have any further questions, like I said, definitely come back and speak to us.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a lovely rest of your day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.